Right now, I get the distinct pleasure of welcoming Alan Adler from his baseball collection studio there in Detroit. How's it going, Alan? Don't have his voice. We'll have Alan on.
I want to start with something new. I want to start with a little bit of breaking news this morning. We're seeing our first look at PACCAR earnings. This is the second big public truck maker to report, and we're seeing some strong numbers out of PACCAR. Now, a couple reasons for that, just off the top. One would be that they've almost the entire product line is new since last year. We had all new medium duties, and the flagship 579, Model 579 is new. But these guys basically hit it out of the park for the first quarter, and we'll get a call a little later today on that. But big numbers across the board, both on the sales side and on net cash, operating cash, almost $500 million. So, we're having some trouble out there. But guys, these guys that have figured out how to get chips in and how to increase production are doing pretty well. So, Volvo surprised on the upside last week. And I would say PACCAR is, anytime you hear a guy, pretty understated guy like Preston Fate, the CEO, say, it's excellent, you better believe him, because these are pretty good numbers. So I just wanted to start there and bring that out today. So anyway, what do you guys want to talk about?
Hey, let's talk about electric vans and drive change. I got to ride in a Nikola last week, which was I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it was very strange to not have, when I started, I'd walk across the line haul yard, I'd hear 200 air starters going off in Toledo. That was my morning wake-up call. My coffee was smelling that diesel and listening to those air starters just going crazy. It was really cool. It was silent. It was very sparse inside, not much inside of it. But quarter throttle snapped my head back a little bit when we took off. It was,
it does. And did you guys turn with it? My big takeaway
we were over at Covenant over here, so we took it out on the road a little bit and went up a couple hills and stuff and drove around. It was a pretty nice truck.
Yeah, my big takeaway there, Michael, was last year I went out to Phoenix and we were just on a track with them. But Freightways did get the first ride in that truck, and I got to tell you, the thing that I took away was sort of that turn on a dime thing. I mean, turning radius of that cab over, which was not originally intended for this market, by the way, but there was enough call for it that they said, okay, we're going to bring it over. This was going to be a European truck originally, and it still will be. But the idea now is we're going to be out there tomorrow watching them build those things. In Arizona, heading out a little later today for just a quick overnight trip to get first look at the Greenfield plant in Coolidge. So pretty excited about that.
Nice. Yeah.
It's super, super exciting. I got to ride in it the second or third time, so I didn't have as much original fun. But that was the biggest thing that the driver told me as well for a day cab was the turning radius, and it was amazing. The second thing I learned was you could theoretically drag race in it if you needed to.
They did that, Thomas. They did that. They I want to say they took was it a F-250 or a 350 diesel? I can't remember. I think they did do that in Indiana at one point. We did not write about that, but the giddy up in these trucks is amazing. I know Duna was down at Hyliion and got to be in that truck last week, and we've been down there as well. And I think that's the big difference. I mean, obviously there's no smell. A little bit. I'll be curious to see how much work they've been able to do on it. The Nikola, a little bit of compressor whine, because those are some big compressors in there in that truck when I was in it last. But we'll get hopefully another ride tomorrow and see about that. But anyway, so vans, big story right now. At least my top story today. Talked to a couple of the players that are making some serious moves. You guys probably remember Spartan Motors, which is now called the Shift Group. And the Shift Group has started a 9th division. It's called Blue Arc. And this is for them a completely, instead of just making the body, which, they do through Utilimaster and some of their other divisions, they developed their own electric chassis plus the top hat or the truck body for this Blue Arc Class 3 delivery van. That'll be out. It'll be a prototype later this year and then in production next year. They're going to follow that with a Class 5. all of this electric stuff basically is coming very quickly now, and it's coming because we're seeing that total cost of ownership parity arriving very quickly. The North American Council for Freight Efficiency last week, unpacked some of the numbers from their Run on Less electric event demonstration last fall, and said pretty much every van today could be running on electric and about TOC with diesel or gasoline in most cases here. So Shift is a player. And then also JB Poindexter, which is, of course, Morgan Olson's parent, and some other bodybuilders. They've started sort of an R&D arm called EAVX. Just an acronym that doesn't really pronounce well. But EAVX is essentially working with electric chassis makers, a lot of startups. I said in my story today, from A to Z, because you've got Atlas, and then you've got all the way out to Zeus, and numbers in between of electric chassis they're working with to sort of make sure that the body that goes on them is taking advantage of the electric architecture. So we're seeing a lot of interesting stuff there. It was a bit of a roundup kind of story. It didn't have like a hard edge to it, but I think it just says, look, as you see these electric vans becoming financially viable, you're seeing a lot of players jostling for position.
So let me ask you this, Alan, because one of the things testing out the EVs, the big Class 8 EVs and the cabovers, I believe it's actually an Iveco truck that is that Nikola.
Oh, yeah.
But part of that is the grid, right? Because it is the charging stations, and there's some difficulties there. And part of these testings is not only running the trucks around and seeing what breaks, what doesn't break, how well they do in day-to-day type of city traffic and that type of stuff with these cabovers especially. I loved the cabovers. That's all I ran out at Roadway Express back in the day doing LTL, because you could park a 53-footer on a dime with one of those things inside of a city, right? They're beautiful. But those were Ford C800 cabovers, right? I mean,
You're aging yourself, Mike. You're aging yourself. Okay.
But yeah, those were pretty old. But so is the grid ready for all the, I mean, I know that the vans are coming in, or you say the cost of ownership. Does that include the ability to have the charging stations inside there and the capacity for the grid to handle all these?
Ultimately, yes, especially if we're talking sort of that class 3 to 6. So we've got to separate out the class 3 to 6 group from the class 8s. Class 8s have a bigger issue because the battery packs are bigger, the charging needs are greater, the length of time they need to charge is still greater. So we'll leave those to the side for the moment. But on the medium duty, that class 3 to 6 range, 150,000 roughly production a year across those classes, your infrastructure comes a little easier. One, the battery packs are smaller. The need for fast charging, direct current fast charging is less because you can make a level 2 charger work. These things are typically running one route a day, or I should say, one shift a day. And when they're out there, they come back to base at night for charging. So, if you've got your charging behind the fence and you don't have a lot of money wrapped up in trenching and things like that with the utility, then you're really not looking at a tremendous overhang of cost. And that's what a lot of this is predicated on, is that you're not going to need public charging really for these delivery vans and such that go 75, 100 miles a day, because a single charge will get you 125 to 160 miles on most of them. They're gonna vary a little bit here and there, but by and large, they're pretty compact, and their needs are less than the big trucks. So we do have a real issue around the grid, as you asked, Michael, with the Class 8 trucks. Some interesting stuff going on there, but for another day. I think what we need to talk about here is can you get the infrastructure in place for these guys to do the van thing? And the answer is yes. It's been an interesting little piece over the weekend about some actually direct charging work that's being done that'll allow you to charge multiple vehicles at a time, maybe 5 at a time, that Borg Warner's working on. So there's they got a grant to do this, a small grant, but it's the kind of stuff that is going to keep the electric infrastructure moving forward.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this. When we put in electric forklifts, when we went from diesel to propane and then eventually electric, right? Again, dating myself a little bit. But those forklifts have to be slip seated, right? And in LTL networks, when you're running day and night, you want to slip seat that equipment as much as possible. And when you're talking about vans that then have to sit and charge for even a couple hours, that becomes a little bit difficult. Are you hearing anybody talking about that type of thing, the ability to slip seat these vans? Because you want those assets rolling as much as possible. And if you can get 3 shifts out of it a day, that's what you want to do. And when you got diesel, you just pump some gas in it for a half hour. And you're ready to roll. Switching out batteries on this stuff, is this a reality? Is this something to think about, or is nobody talking about that type of thing?
Well, a couple of things on the architecture side. A lot of the electric chassis are what are called skateboards. So they basically have all their batteries sort of aligned below, and they have a lower riding height, also good for stability of the eventual vehicle. But you do have people like Shyft that are sticking with a full frame and putting the batteries kind of underneath. So yes, you could presumably, slip a battery out, slip one back in. But again, you're not talking for the most part with these vans 24-hour operation or
right.
3-shift operation. But you are talking about long life in terms of 15, 20 years of use. I mean, you see a step van and some of them look pretty old, but they all look the same. Whether you saw a brand new one or an old one, they look the same. One could be 15 years old. One could have come out of the factory last week. They tend to look alike. They're not beautiful vehicles. They're functional vehicles. So I think the thing here for these vans is durability, long-term durability versus sort of the need to run all the time. Again, on the Class 8 stuff, yeah, you want as much uptime as you can get. You want them being able to be charged quickly, and that's where the direct current charging comes in. If you can get 80% of charge in a couple of hours, you can. I don't know slip seat as a term, Michael, but I think that means changing drivers and keeping the thing going,
yes.
right?
That's right. Yeah,
okay,
keeping it rolling.
So I sort of figured that one out. But
you're a smart guy. I knew you could do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I feel like Michael's very nice to me, Thomas. You need to be nice to me too, as I like you already. So, but I feel like, we've got a little bit of different use case here, right? I mean, the vans are a day thing. This is what Modern Shipper and Brian Strait and Jack are working on and writing about all the time. So, now Class 2, we should talk about that very quickly because that's down under 10,000 pounds of gross vehicle weight. And those can be driven pretty much by anybody. You get into Class 3 and 4 and 5, you don't need a CDL, but you do need, you've got greater insurance needs and, also, some more requirements for the driver. They need to be more like a truck driver, if not a truck driver, actually. And these vans, the 3s and ups, they have to fit the docks, as you were talking about, Michael, and your roadway experience. I mean, they have to come in and line up properly, things like that. So
that's true.
It's almost a specialty vehicle in a way. But I do think taking a look at some of these guys, and EVAX is, I'll call it EVAX. EVAX is an interesting company in terms of some of the stuff they're trying to do. Just saw late yesterday, they're going to be showing with a company called Vicinity out of Canada. They'll be showing a truck next month at the Clean Truck Transportation Exposition in California, which has 360 cameras and all kinds of stuff that EVAX kind of builds into the top hat or into the top of the truck. So pretty interesting stuff going on out there. A little bit of a contrast between how Shyft is going on its own and doing its own thing, and EVAX is coming in with these other guys.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. Thank you so much, Alan. You have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm sure you watched Miggy Cabrera hit his 3,000th home run there in Detroit. That was, or 3